The two leaders, we're going to show you, shook hands and spoke about expectations for the summit and their relationship. Let's go to our Asia correspondent, Sasha Petrusik, who's watching things from Beijing. Sasha, good morning.
Good morning, Heather. I think, you mentioned a minute ago that Donald Trump didn't allow the questions about the Cohen situation to intrude on his photo op. That's because this photo op, those pictures that we just saw with the flags in the background, the cameras clicking, the spotlight, that is what in many ways both leaders came to Singapore 8 months ago for, and in many ways that's what they've come to Hanoi today for. This whole idea that they have a special relationship is something that Donald Trump has talked about, and we've also heard something very similar from Kim Jong-un today as well. He talked about a special relationship, a friendship, that Donald Trump had the courage to arrange all of these sorts of things. A lot of flattery, which we have heard previously, and is a way for North Korea to try to butter up Donald Trump, because experts say they know that that's what works. The question will be whether, in fact, they can come up with something concrete. This is the second time that they have met. The question is, can they actually move toward denuclearization, which was a promise the first time, but hasn't really been kept? There's been evidence that North Korea has continued building nuclear weapons, continued refining plutonium, and that all of this has been going on despite the promises that were made last time and no real advancement in a concrete way.
Much criticism of the first summit as being frustratingly vague, Sasha. I'm wondering, based on what we heard from the U.S. president, that he thinks what they accomplished the first time round was great, but it's going to be even better this time, even greater. He set up expectations for some form of progress. What sort of a deal should we look for? How likely is there to be a deal?
Well, if we look at his tweets and his comments in the last few days, he's been suggesting that North Korea could do very well economically by agreeing to either abandon or at least cut back on its weapons. He's been pointing to Vietnam as an example of how well North Korea could do even with a single-party system. That is expected to be one of the themes that perhaps the United States could lift some of the sanctions that we have seen imposed on North Korea, tough sanctions, in exchange for North Korea giving up, who knows, half a dozen warheads, something like that. How many billions of dollars would it take to get North Korea to give up its nuclear program? That will certainly be something that should be discussed based on what Donald Trump has been saying. A couple of other things that could be on the table. Experts say that one of the most valuable things that he could get from North Korea is some kind of a list of exactly what weapons exist, because then the bargaining can really start. Finally, one last thing that we could see come out of this meeting is a peace treaty for a war that ended really 60 years ago, the Korean War. It ended with a truce, but not a peace treaty. And there's been talk that the two leaders could in fact sign something like that now in order to lay the foundation for more productive talks. I have to add, though, that South Korea is worried about that, because if there's a peace treaty, it could mean that North Korea will say, well, there's no need for the 28,000 American troops which are in South Korea, leaving South Korea much more vulnerable.
Sasha, thank you very much. Appreciate everything this morning as this gets underway. We'll obviously be continuing the conversation. Sasha Petrusik, our Asia correspondent there in Beijing.